Picture perfect. Everything ain't always picture perfect. Picture perfect. Everything ain't always picture perfect.
Yeah. It seems we always got a problem. All I ever tried to do was give you help. Used to wonder if you love me. Now I wonder if you even love yourself. Can you tell me why we're yelling? We're at the mall and all these kids don't need to hear all the secrets you've been telling. You said I wanna be clear, sometimes we fall out of line.
Sometimes we ain't in the right mind.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I am happy to be here with you. And we are speaking on No Soundbites Allowed. And I wish I could be saying that this is a better subject, that we're going to be having some fun, that we're going to be talking about something of great interest for most people, but I can't say that because it wouldn't be true. Now, I hope, and I've gotten notices that Facebook is being very choppy with the signal. I'm being told that there's some interference there, so we may not get that all said and done. You may have some difficulty, but I hope you can hear everything I'm going to go over because it's an important subject. And not everything is picture perfect, just like the opening video musical interlude mentioned. So I'm going to try and talk about the mass shootings. We're talking about El Paso, and last night at 3 in the morning I was noticing the news that we had another shooting which took place in Dayton, Ohio. And we have the one that just took place at the Garlic Festival in California. And I want to talk about what are the similarities? What are we seeing here? And what's being said about it? Because I can tell you, in over a decade of covering this, of covering mass shootings in every state, in every part of the country, and all of the offers, the suggestions to try and change this, you'd be amazed how much people are being lied to. And that hurts our ability to stop this, to change this, to prevent it. I mean, I've gone through FOIAs. I've talked with many states. I've read the regulations, the laws. Did you know there's over 22,000 regulations, laws, city ordinances on firearms in the United States at this moment? Over 22,000. Pretty much any community within the United States right now is being affected by over 100 city, state, and federal ordinances on firearms. That's ownership, crimes, usage, all of it. And yet, since the 1940s, mass shootings have continued. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. This has been happening since the 1940s. I believe it was 1946, the first recorded mass shooting, which took place in New Jersey. And we've been seeing them continue since that time. And there have been lots of laws, lots of legislation, lots of discussion on how to stop this, and every single one has failed. And in the last 20 years, we've gotten the same answer every single time. And it has failed every single time for the last 2 decades. And I'm going to talk about that. And I want to have your feedback. Now, for everyone who's watching, please I want you to know, because of the difficulties with Facebook and also on YouTube, it's going to be a little difficult for me to be able to see if you're commenting. I am looking for the comments, but I won't necessarily be able to see them. So what I'm going to do is, if you can, please send me a text to 607-242-9247, and I'll try and answer any questions you may have or read your comments. If you want me to mention your name, please put that name in there, and I will do so. I also want to take a moment just to mention today, which is August 4th, my very good friend Matt Cornwell is the opening act over at Kansas at Speedy Fest in the southern tier of New York in Broome County. And he's opening for the band Kansas. And we hope he's going to have a great show. I'll be trying to get out there. That's at 4 p.m. today, August 4th. And I do advise you, if you can get there, check it out. If you see me, say hello and let me know what you think. In addition, if you're around in the Binghamton area, check out the Belmar Pub and the Park Diner. I think they're great locations. And again, these aren't paid advertisements. They're my friends. These are businesses and individuals I know and I enjoy being around. And so I just want to share that information with you. That being said, let's really delve into this. Let's really have a conversation, because I don't think there is a really honest conversation that is going on right now. And I can tell you that because, well, let's start off the top. When we're talking about mass shootings, everyone thinks, well, America is the worst place in the world. Mass shootings are rampant here. In fact, you've heard President Obama quote that we are the worst, that nowhere in the world has this kind of issue, that we're 31% of all mass shootings happen in America, and we're only 5% of the population. In fact, that was something that was addressed by the New York Post. In their article, America actually doesn't lead the world in mass shootings because you've been lied to, because you've been told misinformation. And that's sad, and it's important to know. According to the Crime Prevention Research Center, and this was done in, and to be exact, I want to get you the exact date here, August 30th of 2018, research was done on what President Obama was quoting. And in fact, the fact is, of 86 countries that have been identified with having mass public shootings, the United States ranks 56th per capita and is 61st in mass public shooting murder rate. Norway, Finland, Switzerland, Russia, all have 45% higher rates. In fact, if you keep looking through all the data, what you really find out is the U.S. share of shooters isn't 31%, like President Obama said. It's actually 1.43%. And that the U.S. has 2.1% of the murders and 2.88% of all the attacks. That's it. And yeah, we have 5% of the population. You've been lied to. You've been told the wrong information. Why? Well, that's where we're going to come to with these three shootings in the Garlic Fest in California, in the El Paso Walmart shooting in Texas, and in the shooting in Dayton at the it's a bar in Dayton, Ohio, which this came out. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that, because you can't get an answer if the information you're getting, the question we're trying to answer, is flawed, if it's not true, if you're not trying to address the problem, but deal with only an emotional political commentary, an emotional political plea, which ends up doing one thing: getting cheap votes and not helping the public. It's one of the reasons why we're not safer today, because we're not really dealing with the problem. We're trying to deal with the politics. And as long as we keep trying to deal with the politics, no one in America will be safer, although you're promised consistently, just do as we say and you'll be safe. And every single time that has been a lie. I remember when I did an article about this back in 2017. In fact, I wrote the article at my Voss political commentary site, which you're happy to look at. The title is A Deep Look at Mass Shootings and Gun Control Facts, which I wrote on, I believe that was October, where was the date there? October 6th of 2017. And I recommend people check out the data here. Not only do we go through what is the term, because assault weapon didn't exist until 1985, but I go through all of it. How many gun owners are there? How many guns are there? Let's go through this. What are the laws in the gun control efforts? And have they been effective? Have they actually helped anyone? Looking at states and looking at the actual murder rates in California, Connecticut, Illinois, New York, and all the ways that homicides are being committed. And where is the real danger coming from? I've gone through all of it. Like I said, I've done FOIAs, I've done interviews with elected politicians about the legislation they're putting out there. I've read the legislation, and I can tell you with 100% assurance, you don't have the full story. The average person in America has no idea how little any of our politicians are actually doing to try and protect you. The most they're doing is telling you that if you do what we say, you will be safe. And every single time, that has not been true. And I can say that with 100% assurance, because when we think about it, this isn't new. I mean, you've heard some politicians that have come out there and they have said, just like I believe it was Mayor Nan Whaley, and she had said this, this is being reported by CNN. CNN today mentioned that she believes there have been 250 mass shootings in the United States in 2019. That's incredible. That's huge. Oh my God, that would blow away the world. That blows away the average of every nation in the world, all 86. Except it's a lie. It's a lie. There haven't been 250 mass shootings in the United States. That's a made-up number. That's a number that says that it's like Beto O'Rourke when he says that there's 40,000 gun violence acts in the United States, which is true if you include gun suicides, if you include gang shootings, if you include drug actions with drugs and crimes with drugs. Yeah, you have to include a lot of things, including accidents. You have to include all of that to get to 40,000. But that's not the real number. When you strip out all the things that don't have to do with mass shootings and accidents and drugs and gangs, you know what the number is? 6,000. It's on average 6,000 per year. Out of 350 million people in America, out of 160 million gun owners in America, 6,000. You're looking at 99.99% of America is safe and legal gun owners that pose no problem. And they own 350 million guns, more than there are Americans in the United States. And they pose no problem to anyone. We have enough guns in America that if guns by themselves were the problem, you'd already be dead. That's just a fact. But you're not. And you haven't been. And America has always had more firearms than people. And yet, the majority of Americans are safe. And in fact, about 20 mass shootings take place every year. Every year, over the last 40 years. No matter what gun law has been passed, no matter what legislation has been passed, there have been about 20 per year, with on average 100 people being killed, which is a sad number. And I would love to see that go to zero. But as we see across the entire world over the last 40 years, that doesn't happen. And that's why the United States is at 1.43% in mass shootings versus the rest of the world, why we rank 56th. Not first, 56th. Because of people like Nan Whaley, who's lying to the public. Lying to the public. Because it's sensational. And when you say there's 250 of these things, people get terrified. That's called fear-mongering. And then when you say, well, there's 250 mass shootings, we've got to do something. We've got to do something now. We've got to protect everyone. We've got to protect our kids. We've got to protect our schools. We've got to protect everyone. And if we don't do that, oh my God, we're doing the wrong thing. Except it's a lie. It's fear-mongering. It's a way to get you emotionally reacting without thinking. Because the reality is, this is the 22nd mass shooting. Slightly higher than the average, but not extraordinarily so. And yes, even one is too many, but there are realities in this world. Even one car accident is too many. Even one overdose on drugs is too many. And yet, they exist. That's a reality. These things happen. What we have to do is try and address the reality to fix it. And making sensational statements like Nan Whaley has done doesn't help anyone. It doesn't make the situation better. And if you think, well, Mike, you're just making up the fact that there are 250 of them. I saw it in Mother Jones. I saw it in some of the left-leaning things like Huffington Post. They're quoting this number. Some of the news agencies like MSNBC are quoting 250 incidents. Well, you're right, they do. But again, these are left-leaning organizations. What happens when you go a little more centrist? Organizations that are paying attention to the actual numbers that they have out there. Because I know, you see it, it says 250, 250. Well, the reality is that the number is actually 22. The reality is it's actually 22. And I have the research on that because I saw this. The USA Today quoting that there's, oh my God, there's so many. There's 250 of them. Except it's not a true number. It's not a real number. That's fear-mongering. And fear-mongering doesn't help anyone. And I have the number, here it is. And let me tell you why I say this. Because I pay attention to all the news. And according to ABC News, in their article that came out on August 4th, today, at 11:30, what they happen to have to say about this is that according to the AP USA Today Northeastern University mass murder database that tracks homicides where 4 or more people were killed, the actual definition of a mass shooting, not including the offender, there have been 20 mass shootings in the United States in 2019 that preceded this weekend with 96 lives, the exact average on a general year. So, no, this isn't being made up. You're just not being told the truth. Because 250, 10 times the reality, gets people scared. And when you scare people, they'll accept anything. They'll do whatever you say. It's an intimidation factor. But I promised that we were going to look at the shootings. And what do we see that's very common in each of these shootings? But I want you to understand the background of what we're talking about. What's the reality of what's happening out here? Because if you don't understand that, you can't understand how to get to the answer. Because we can see the misinformation is out there, and people are trying their best to make you react emotionally without thinking so that you can do whatever they want. And you have to ask yourself, why are they trying to fearmonger and scare people into passing laws instantly without thinking about it? Things like the reaction to the Parkland mass shooting. And we passed all the red flag laws, which theoretically 17 states have it. We should see a reduction in the amount of mass shootings. We don't. We should see a reduction in the number of people who've been injured. We don't. The gun-free zones that have been around for over a decade, we should see this affecting those numbers, right? But we don't. But you were promised that you will be able to sleep well at night and know that you are safe because there's a red flag law, because there's the New York SAFE Act, because there's 22,000 laws saying that you shouldn't use a firearm to kill people, and yet you're not. It's a wake-up call when you think about it. This is what's been told to you, and yet that's not what you're getting. And when we look at things like we look at here in the El Paso shooting, which follows up the Garlic shooting, what we know about the Garlic Fest, a young man, troubled, obviously, with many issues, traveled to an event and started shooting people. And because he was confronted by police in less than a minute, according to police reports, he started to engage, instead of just randomly shooting anyone and everyone, he started to get into a firefight with the police. And in under a minute, he realized he would lose that fight. He was shot 3 times by police officers and then killed himself. That's the news we have coming out of LA. Okay. And why? Why does that matter? Because when we look at the other incidents, so we have the Garlic Fest, under a minute, and the incident stops. Lives are saved because police were on scene. When we look at what's going on with what happened in El Paso, what we see is that the shooter, it took police 6 minutes. 6 minutes to try and get onto the scene. And in those 6 minutes, over 20 people are reported as killed. 26 are reported as injured. And that's according to CNN as of August 4th. And we believe that there was a 21-year-old who did this, who traveled 650 miles, 9 hours, to come to this one location to kill people. And you have to ask yourself, 650 miles? He drove 650 miles. Why? Why did he go there? Why did he get in body armor? Why did he choose to do this? And in the 6 minutes of his rampage, it was actually 20 minutes of a rampage according to the Daily Mail, and police didn't get there until 6 minutes after it started. Taking that all into account, you have to ask yourself a very simple question. What would have happened if the police got there in a minute or two? What would have happened if someone confronted the gunman in the first minute or two? How many lives would be saved? Except Walmart is a gun-free zone. So people couldn't. Unless I've completely mistaken that, which I don't believe I have. But we do know that when you confront that gunman sooner, fewer lives are lost. This guy in El Paso ran out of bullets and gave up. That's the only reason why he stopped killing people. And when we look at what was happening more recently, looking at the Dayton, Ohio shooting, you know what? Police were on scene in about a minute. In a minute. And they killed that killed that shooting, that stopped the event. And that's why so many people were saved. But you don't hear that in the news. You know what you also probably didn't hear in the news, looking at El Paso? That the mall shooting, there was a hero, a soldier, a member of the military was there. And that was a Mr. Glendon Oakley, who's in the Army, stationed at Fort Bliss, who saved children's lives because he was armed and he grabbed the kids and he got them to safety. But you don't hear about that in the news because that would be uplifting. Again, it's another person armed, defending the innocent and being able to help protect them and help stop an incident. And we hear this over and over again. Remember that church shooting in Texas with a gunman with an AR-15 who was stopped by a gun instructor with his own AR-15? How about, there are so many of these incidents that happen. We've seen it in Ohio as well, where there was another gentleman during the middle of the day trying to start shooting people in another bar, and then he was stopped because a man went to his car, got his firearm, came back, and confronted the shooter, saving lives over and over again. Now I bring this up because I'm going to try and get this. There we go. We're back up. I'm going to try and make sure that people can hear this because it's an important issue and we need to be able to have a conversation about this. And I'm going to try and make sure that people can hear it as best as they can. So let me go back to what I was saying. What we're looking at is, in each of these cases, whether the person was a Democrat or a Republican. I mean, we had the mass shooting at the congressional baseball field, shooting Representative Steve Scalise. That was a purposive political shooting. We had incidents like Gabby Giffords, which was an incidental political incident. Did it matter? No, because it's still the same thing. A mass shooting, an individual who came to the point, and I've said this so many times, that he came to the point that the only answer in life was to go out and kill innocents. And that's a problem. There is the problem. It's not that they're young men. It's not that they're white. It's not that they have a firearm. And they use many things. Handguns, shotguns, rifles. That doesn't change things. It doesn't make people safer or less safe. That's not the issue. I mean, if that was really the issue, then people would be going up in arms. Oops, wait a minute. People would be going up in arms about things that actually matter. I mean, you want to talk about what's really bad, how bad things are. You want to talk about protecting people? Then guess what? Why aren't people talking about Baltimore? As of 2019 to date, there have been 180 shootings out of 199 homicides in the Baltimore area. Okay? I don't hear anyone screaming about that except President Trump. And when he did mention that there was a problem there, he was labeled a racist. 180 people have been shot and killed. Does it matter what race they were? How about this? How about Chicago? And that was, by the way, that was the Baltimore Sun that reported 180 shootings. How about we look at Chicago? Chicago had 314 shootings. Okay? There are over 293 people that have been killed in Chicago this year. The majority because of shootings. That's according to the Chicago Tribune. Those aren't mass shootings, but they have hundreds of shootings per year. Per year. I don't hear anyone speaking about that back. And I hope people will realize, and I understand,